Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Wednesday, June 4th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the Well Point Studios here in beautiful downtown Lowell. And as you might have caught a quick sneak peek at the top of the podcast, you can see that once more, I'm here all alone. Lost all my friends. Nobody wants to come in with me anymore and do the Daily Pulse. So we're flying solo today, a Wing It Wednesday edition of the Daily Pulse. Just kidding, I think, about losing all my friends. We're usually joined by former Lowell Mayor Bill Samaras on Wednesday, but he's got a couple of scheduling conflicts the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get anyone to fill in for him today, but he's certainly with us in spirit. And instead of getting him in trouble, I'll just get myself in trouble all alone today. We got a couple of things that we want to talk about. As we say, the Daily Pulse is the show that keeps its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. Today, we're going to look at the world around it mostly, but as you know, everything ties back to good old Lowell, Massachusetts. So we'll talk about a couple of quick things. I promise I'll be out of here early, and I know I say that to you every time I'm in here by myself, but this time I really mean it. So let me first thank my Daily Pulse sponsors, Ray Booten. He's a licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. He's a certified appraiser in both of those states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, the one call you should make is to Ray Booten. You can find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. That's realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. WellPoint, the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members at WellPoint. Your whole health is their whole point. I've got my WellPoint mug here. Once I pop the graphics up, I'll probably take a quick sip or two to get my throat cleared and stuff. But we got some other sponsors that we want to thank as well, but let's get right down to it. And let's start by saying, hey, we did it again yesterday, or I did it again, apparently, on my Trigger 'em Tuesday podcast. I triggered the YouTube censorship gods. Yeah, they were not very happy with me. Now, you might be wondering, what on earth did that Panos character talk about that would get a little warning label on YouTube? I mean, yesterday we talked about two pieces of legislation that other news agencies have covered here in Massachusetts. One of them was a transportation bill that seeks to basically put a limit on the miles that people can travel per year here in Massachusetts. We talked about that. And then we talked about Medicare for All, which, again, it's been all over your newspapers. It's been all over your TV stations. Hell, it's also making some regional headlines as well here. What could possibly have ticked off the YouTube censorship gods? Well, it was the transportation bill, because I just talked about electric vehicles. But let me show you what I mean. There you see my stupid face in a freeze frame. That's the snip I was able to capture. But as you look at the bottom, there's the YouTube warning label in the purple, climate change, with a link. And the note that, according to the United Nations, climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. Human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. And there's the headline of the podcast. They put it right underneath the video, even above the description of the show. But did I talk about climate change being a hoax? Right? I said no such thing. I didn't say anything about it. I talked about the legislation that would limit the number of miles that people drove, carbon emissions. I also pointed out that those of you who bought your electric cars because you thought you were doing the right thing, which is what the climate alarmists told you about. Oh, did I use the word climate alarmists? Maybe not. Maybe I'll get another little censor note on today's Wing It Wednesday edition, but all I said was, listen, if you bought an electric vehicle, you thought you were doing the right thing. Sure, you were enriching Elon Musk. You were putting a lot of extra money in his pockets and the pockets of his shareholders, but you said, hey, I'm doing my part. I don't have a gas guzzler. I should be exempt from the mileage-driven limits. And I simply pointed out that, no, you are not under this piece of legislation. As a matter of fact, you are specifically mentioned by State Senator Cynthia Cream, who sponsored this legislation, that you're still using fuel, energy, you're using electricity. And as we all know, electricity in Massachusetts is derived mostly from natural gas, some degree from coal, some degree from nuclear, some degree from wind, some degree from solar, some degree from hydro, and it's a whole smorgasbord. But most of your electricity in Massachusetts is still created through the burning of fossil fuels. That's simple fact. I don't know what would piss off the YouTube censor gods and their algorithm over that, but apparently they feel it was a big threat to the chosen ideology, to the preferred ideology. So they had to put your little note on there to let you know that human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. There it is right there. It will forever be etched on this video. Now, two things. Number one, we're making progress, by the way. We are making some real progress in the fight against censorship, because 5-6 years ago, if you triggered the censorship gods, you might get your video taken down off of YouTube. You still might, depending on what you say. But it's happening a lot less. So, now you get a warning label, but the video is still there. So everybody is free to watch this very important podcast that highlights two very impactful pieces of legislation making their way through the Massachusetts State House. And, do whether you support them, whether you're against them, you should know about them. You should know what they do, how they're funded and whatnot. So I consider it a good sign of progress that the video is still there. Thank you, YouTube censorship gods. Thank you, YouTube algorithm and your little spying software that catches trigger words that, make it a little label put on the video. But the bigger point is we love the Daily Pulse here in Lowell, right? People in the know in Lowell watch it, but in the grand scheme of things, on a worldwide climate crisis, how big of a factor in the discourse in the United States and around the planet is the InsideLowell Daily Pulse? Are we really that much of a threat? Talking about two pieces of legislation. This is news, folks. We're talking about legislation. What's driving it? Who's paying for it? I didn't even talk all that much about how effective it may or may not be. Is this really a threat to the accepted ideology around climate change? I didn't question it. I didn't do anything. Lord knows I question it, and we've talked about it on other podcasts. Other podcasts have gotten warning labels, but yesterday's was really bizarre. So my question is, the fact that a note, a label on an innocuous video, in the grand scheme of things, talking about a piece of legislation designed to limit how many miles you can drive your vehicle, electric vehicles included, if that is enough to be a threat to the ideology, how solid is the footing that ideology is standing on? I'm a threat to climate change. Inside Lowell, that stupid podcast, this podcast here, this is a threat to the accepted ideology, to the science that is decided. How solid is the footing they're standing on if this is the kind of thing that they feel they have to warn you about? 5 years ago, they would have put a warning label had I said to you that the Hunter Biden laptop was a legitimate story and that it was not Russian disinformation, as 51 former intelligence agents and a bunch of other propagandists in the news media told you. Anyway, what today's conspiracy, today's warning label, it's probably tomorrow's fact. But the good news is, 5 years ago, my Hunter Biden podcast, if I were doing a Daily Pulse, then that would have been taken off of YouTube completely as disinformation and would have completely disappeared from the Google search engines as well. At least now we're there, so we're making progress. And YouTube, you're threatened by me? Yeah. Does your algorithm pick up the middle finger I just stuck up at the camera? Because honestly, get a life. Get a life. Just you post so much ridiculous bleeping content. I watch the stuff my kids watch. I watch the stuff other adults watch. I think you got bigger concerns about the content on your platform than me, but see if your algorithms pick that up. All right, you're tuned into the Daily Pulse on this Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. Let me thank our Daily Pulse sponsors here, those who put up with me and my warning labels. I really appreciate Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Mass and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Thank you to Washington Savings Bank, banking that goes the extra mile. Are they going to have to change their slogan, by the way, their catchphrase? If this legislation passes, you go the extra mile, you're going to pay a fee, Washington Savings Bank. So be really, really careful. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. Sorry, I can't help myself. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in our communities through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis E. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell is counted on since 1982 to protect its most valued assets, and by the Massachusetts Pirates. They bring all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. Yesterday, we dropped our latest Inside the Pirates podcast featuring wide receiver 𝐖𝐢𝐧𝐠. Check it out, InsideLowell.com under our podcast link, or just go watch it on YouTube. I don't think they've put a warning label on that, even though 𝐖𝐢𝐧𝐠 was actually doing the podcast on a Zoom while he was in a car that I think was moving. I don't know, maybe a warning label about that for, Zooming while driving. Anyway, second point that I want to talk about today, looking at the world around us. Did you see a headline that dropped yesterday? A major news headline, not getting a lot of play on certain types of media, getting more than its share on other types of media, but it did involve a social media post. And let's temporarily take down my YouTube warning label, and let me bring you to the Twitter account of FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation Director Kash Patel, who yesterday afternoon/early evening confirmed that the FBI arrested a Chinese national within the United States who allegedly smuggled a dangerous biological pathogen into the country. The individual is alleged to have smuggled a dangerous fungus called Fusarium graminearum, or pardon my pronunciation there. It's an agroterrorism agent that was smuggled into the U.S. to research at the University of Michigan, where she works. Agroterrorism. It's something used to commit agricultural terrorism. Your food stock. It's something that's destructive to your foods, the crops you grow, the livestock that you raise to supply the food supply in the United States of America. This fungus can cause a disease called head blight, a disease of wheat, barley, maize, corn, and rice, which causes significant health issues in both humans and in the livestock. That's why I said it affects the livestock. It is responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses worldwide each year. Evidence also indicates that Yung Qingjian had expressed loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party and had received funding from the Chinese government for similar work on this pathogen in China. So she's getting funding from the Chinese government, allegedly, to work with a pathogen that would destroy a food supply or put such a dent in it that it would create a massive crisis. A little more to the story. Jan's boyfriend, Zhongyang Liu, is also charged in the complaint. He works at a Chinese university where he conducts research on the same pathogen. He's alleged to have first lied, then admitted to also smuggling this agroterrorism agent into America through the Detroit-Minneapolis airport so that he too could conduct research at the University of Michigan. Both individuals have been charged with conspiracy, smuggling goods into the United States, false statements, and visa fraud. Now, anybody who travels knows if you're bringing anything into the country across a border, you have to, right? Anytime you take an international flight, you have to do these customs declarations things. You can't bring food. You can't bring this. You can't bring that. These two allegedly tried to smuggle something in here that supposedly they were going to study more of at the University of Michigan. That's the best case scenario. They were going to study it. Worst case scenario, they were going to unleash it here in the United States and damage our food. Wheat, barley, maize/corn, and rice. Some of the staples of everybody's diet. And it would cause health issues in both the humans and the livestock, which then kills off the livestock, the beef, the chicken, the pork, everything that we eat, the lamb. Don't touch the lamb. The Greeks will go crazy. But so these two nationals of China tried to smuggle it into the United States of America. Why is that not a bigger news story? And perhaps now we understand why last week the Trump administration started to put a hold on students from China coming into the United States to study, which people at Harvard lost their mind and other universities across the country lost their mind. Some dangerous stuff. And by the way, an agroterrorism agent. A lot of connections between China and the United States and research institutions, aren't there? Right? University of Michigan here, research on basically that's a chemical weapon. They call it a agricultural agent. Basically it's a chemical weapon designed to do work, negative work, to damage a population, damage a product, damage something. It's warfare. It's terrorism. It's warfare. Much like the studies going on in Wuhan, where American scientists and the NIH, National Institutes for Health, had moved studies of COVID diseases. And they were doing research in Wuhan, China. Americans involved in that research as well. Chinese involved in it, Americans involved with it. Now you've got Chinese coming to America, Chinese nationals coming to America with whatever it is, how did they word that again? I got to go look at the word, agroterrorism agents. And they're studying it at the University of Michigan right alongside Americans and whatnot. And again, it might just be innocent. Maybe they were just studying it. Why the bleep are you studying something that would destroy your livestock and some of the staples of your food supply? I guess they would tell you, well, we're studying it so that we can find out how to combat it, how to find the antigen to it, the cure for it, the solution for it, etc. Maybe that's what they're telling you. But doesn't it strike you that you wouldn't need to find a solution for it, an antigen for it, if you just didn't create it in the first place? And that's where the argument gets a little bit interesting, because again, even if you tell me you're studying it to try to find the solution for it, do we really need Chinese nationals to be the ones studying it at the University of Michigan? We're going to put a potentially dangerous chemical in the hands of people who are not citizens of the United States of America, who, as the allegation says, work at Chinese universities and are allegedly loyal to the Chinese Communist Party and receiving funding from the Chinese government? Glad the FBI caught this. Glad Kash Patel caught it. I'm glad he publicized it. Should be getting more headlines. Should be getting more headlines, so we should know what exactly foreign governments are up to, but also what's our own government up to in this regard, and why is the University of Michigan kind of ground zero for this? Why is it being smuggled into Detroit Airport? Well, because that's where the University of Michigan is. It's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so I guess you got to fly into Detroit, but University of Michigan, you got some kind of a problem with terrorist studies going on at your, potential terrorist studies going on at your labs, where your students work, your professors work and whatnot. Weird stuff. Weird stuff. All right. Our final discussion for today. I told you I was going to be quick, and I promise I'll go through this one pretty quickly. But it's deja vu all over again with teachers and contract issues and budget problems and layoffs. Except it's not in Lowell this time. It's in the city of Methuen. Back to the graphic screen. And tweet from the Boston Herald yesterday and a link to the story. Methuen teachers turned out at a city council meeting Monday night saying the mayor's proposed cuts to the educator workforce would mean an entire school's worth of educators will have been laid off within 2 years. The headline of the story there, that's a really weird, it looks like they had a snowstorm and a freezing when they took that photo outside of Methuen City Hall. But you can see the subheadline, or the headline of the article down at the bottom there. Methuen teachers say 80 educators will be laid off due to proposed budget cuts. Now, they had 40 teachers laid off last year in Methuen, and now they're saying they need another 80 laid off in Methuen. So, Lowell, you're not the only ones in this battle. As a matter of fact, your battles are fewer and farther between. This is a constant in Methuen. In 2018, in Methuen, they laid off 50 staff members. And according to the folks fighting those layoffs, it was due to exorbitant police contracts. Remember, Methuen had some problems with some of their captains making $300,000 a year and above, and their police chief. There was a whole thing in Methuen in 2018. Trust me, I remember covering it when I was doing radio. You can look it up. It's a big deal. But besides exorbitant police contracts that Methuen was blaming it on, it was also blamed on, and again, stop me if you've heard this before, rising special education costs, state aid cuts, historical lack of investment in Methuen public schools, aka the buildings and other educational components, and then increased out-of-district costs. That, take out the 50 cuts, right? Because Lowell's was 53, I believe. But that 2018 story from Methuen reads pretty much just like the current Lowell school budget battle that has been solved apparently by the city caving, my word, not the city's word, but my word, they caved on the school budget. But rising special education costs, state aid cuts, aka less money than they believe the state should be giving them, historical lack of investment in Methuen public schools, and increased out-of-district costs. In other words, Methuen has the exact same issues that the city of Lowell has. And by the way, these two cities are not alone. Communities all around the Commonwealth are having this same budget battle as the temporary ARPA money is now gone. There's still some lagging behind that they can spend, but it will all be gone. Methuen, by the way, it wasn't just 2018. Methuen had to institute a wage freeze in 2020, the COVID year. In 2016, there was the threat of 54 layoffs if the city and the state didn't give them enough money. And even as far back as 2010, there were 19 layoffs in the Methuen Public School District because of budget issues. So the story kind of jumped out at me when it moved across my Twitter feed, because I'm like, I feel like I'm reading the last month of political discussions here in Lowell, the last month of budget discussions in Lowell with their proposed cuts of 50 some odd staff members in the Lowell Public Schools and so on and so forth. I'm not sure what the end result will be in Methuen. They actually did 40 cuts last year, so they have to do another 80 this year. That tells me Methuen has a structural budget issue in their school department, which I believe Lowell does as well. But now you could say that, well, Methuen's City Hall has a structural budget issue in how it funds its schools. Ditto, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a structural issue in how it funds all of the district schools, all the 330 some odd districts throughout the state. But for the Lowellians out there, because it is the Daily Pulse and everything kind of ties into Lowell, your battle is not unique. Your government, your city hall is no more nefarious than any other across the Commonwealth. I guess you could say it is, because there's probably a handful of districts that always cave, like Lowell's just did. But this is a common refrain across the Bay State and across time in Methuen. 2010, 2016, 2018, and 2020, and now once again in 2024, where they laid off 40 teachers, and 2025, where they have to lay off another 80. Something needs to be fixed, because the problem is only going to get worse money-wise, right? You can only come in. Remember, since 2020, since 2018, really, we've come up with a bunch of other funding sources to give revenue, taxes, to the politicians on Beacon Hill, and some of it trickles down to cities and towns, right? There's we legalized medicinal marijuana. We legalized recreational marijuana, all of which they tax the bejesus out of. As anyone who buys the products will tell you, it's cheaper to buy it from a street dealer, but ostensibly it's much more expensive. So, take the risk, or, go buy the legal stuff and get taxed to the third world. But they added gambling revenues. They've added the millionaire tax. All of this new money's coming in. How many more things can they tax? Well, actually, yes, from yesterday's show, they can tax your carbon emissions. We found out there's an effort right there. All of it designed to take money from your pocket, the working men and women of Massachusetts, and put it into somebody else's pocket. First into the state coffers, and then they'll distribute it. Are they really distributing all of it, though, to schools, to roads, to bridges, to all these things they say that this tax money is going to? Or is it getting diverted into pay raises for folks up on Beacon Hill and beyond, right? Is it getting put into too much administration? Is it getting put into pensions, or all sorts of other things? That's for you to decide as the public. But know that this issue is not distinctive to Lowell, not exclusive to Lowell, not unique to Lowell. It is an issue in Methuen. It's an issue across the state. I bet you if I started searching around on Twitter, I would find similar discussions through a handful of communities. I know, if you listen to the town managers around this area of Chelmsford and Westford and Tewksbury and everywhere else, they're all on pins and needles because of funding issues from the state, and it eventually, invariably, trickles down to their school systems, their public education system. Something is wrong statewide, or something is wrong municipal-wide, because there are some communities that don't have these battles. What is their town hall doing? What is their city hall doing? I don't know. Maybe they're just so much more affluent than Lowell and Methuen. Methuen isn't exactly an incredibly affluent community in the grand scheme of things. They're, better off than Lawrence and Lowell, I would guess, but they're not Andover. They're not Concord and Carlisle and some of the more affluent communities. So, is the problem at the city and town level? Is the problem at the state level? More than likely, the problem is at both levels. There is major work that needs to be done to get this stuff under control, to fix these structural issues once and for all, but most importantly, to make it sustainable, because I'm not sure going back to the taxpayers every single year and asking for more money is sustainable either. I'm willing to bet it's not. I'm willing to bet you it's not. At some point, people will run out of money. So at some point, was that old saying, the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money to spend? That's the problem in a capitalistic democracy, as we are somewhat, is you will eventually run out of other people's money to spend as well. There is only so much of a pie around. Maybe you can make the pie a little bit bigger, but if you're eating it, spending it at a faster pace than you're baking it and making it, then you're going to run into problems. All right. Deja vu in Methuen with their teachers all over again for like the fifth time in the last decade and a half in Methuen, and sounds an awful lot like Lowell's issue, except up to this point, the Methuen mayor who runs the city, they have a mayor who they elect who runs the city as opposed to the city manager in Lowell where the councilors select him. The Methuen mayor to this point has not caved or has not alleviated the issue, however you want to look at it. We've got some agricultural sabotage and terrorism to keep an eye on. And what else is out there? What else is being brought into our country by other nationals? And the YouTube censorship gods. One more time for you. I'm just curious if the algorithms pick up just words or if they pick up visuals as well. I apologize for the profanity to my regular sensitive Daily Pulse viewers. All right, I told you I was going to be brief. I was. That's only about 32 minutes minus the advertising time. So I only wasted a half hour of your time today. Wing It Wednesday edition of the Daily Pulse. Tomorrow, Leslie Boder will join us for a Thursday appearance. We're going to start dragging her in here more often, not just on every other Friday. Speaking of Friday, the Pod Squad, Mike Bacigalupo, Michaela Hondras McCarthy will be here. We'll do our week in review and then veer off into Lord knows what. But it drops every single day at noon on InsideLowell.com and YouTube, on our audio podcast channels, and you can even see snippets of it on Facebook. It's the Daily Pulse, the show keeping its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. Till tomorrow, everybody enjoy this great day. Stay cool. One of the first times in a long time, I'm going to tell you to stay cool out there. We're going to get into the upper 80s today, 90s tomorrow. Stay cool, stay safe, and I will catch you on the other side.